The next speaker will be Sophia. She will talk about some prospects in the future with ET and WST for multi-messenger observations. 15 minutes, and I will warn you against speed.
Okay. So I'm Sofia Bisero, a third-year PhD student at the Paris Observatory, working under the supervision of Susanna Vergani. I'll tell you a bit about this synergy of the Einstein telescope with this future project that is the Wide Field Spectroscopic Telescope. So as we saw yesterday, the Einstein telescope has already been introduced and discussed. It's a third-generation gravitational wave interferometer that will have a way higher sensitivity with respect to current detectors. And therefore, it will allow to explore a much larger volume of the universe with respect to now, detecting a huge number of binary neutron star system mergers, BNS. But these mergers will still have pretty large error regions, as you can see from these two plots that represent the number of BNS detected by ET and ET in a network cosmic explorer as a function of redshift. Different colors refer to different sky localization error regions. And the challenge in doing the electromagnetic counterpart research will be to find faint optical near-infrared sources within these large error regions among a huge number of contaminants. In fact, there will be photometric observations with facilities with large field of views and high sensitivities like the Vera Rubin Observatory that will provide a lot of counterpart candidates. And at that point, the bottleneck of gravitational wave multi-messenger science will likely become spectroscopy, as it is the main tool we have to definitely identify a transient. For instance, here on the right, you have the beautiful temporal evolution of the X-shooter spectrum of AT 2017 GFO. That was very important not only to study the physics and heavy element nucleosynthesis and so on, but also to identify the transient as a kilonova. So in this framework, the possibility to take multiple, even thousands of spectra at once can play a key role in this game of identifying and characterizing counterparts. This can be done with the integral field and multi-object spectroscopy. So with an integral field unit, you can acquire a two-dimensional field image, and then you acquire also a spectrum for each pixel of that image. While fibers can be positioned on the precise localizations of the sources of interest, and then multiple, even thousands of spectra are acquired at once. So we choose as an example of a spectroscopic telescope with a large field of view, WST, the Wide Field Spectroscopic Telescope, that is planned to be realized in the 2030s, 40s as a 10-meter primary mirror telescope with this large field of view of 3 degrees squared where fibers can be positioned. And then it will have also this panoramic EFS with the 3x3 arc-minute squared field of view to be moved in a 9x9 arc-minute squared mosaic. So what is the stage of this project? In 2024, an EU Horizon funding proposal has been approved for a 3-year concept study, and it will be proposed for the next CISO call for a ground-based large program. And on the right, you have the comparison with the current and future EFS and MOS facilities. So it's important to exploit the great potential of multi-messenger observations of ET BNS to prepare an observing strategy while in advance of the operations. This is what we are doing within the WST Time Domain Working Group and the Division 4, that is the Multi-Messenger Observation Division of the ET Observational Science Board. So we are considering at the moment two main possibilities, either to use WST alone to perform a galaxy-targeted research within the error volumes of ET-BNS, or to use it in synergy with optical near-infrared photometric observations, so targeting the counterpart candidates already provided by these observations. It's important in the first case to have an idea of how many galaxies can be found actually in these error volumes. And I will come back a bit more on this later. Now let's see what are the properties of the counterparts that are effectively detectable with WST. So to see these, I did simulations with the exposure time calculator of WST. I started from datasets of simulated ET-BNS detections and corresponding counterparts, so kilonovi and gamma ray burst afterglows, provided by the Gran Sasso Science Institute group. And then I wanted to see the detectability and characterization of these counterparts with WST, and to see if the results depend or not on the observable and intrinsic properties of the BNS population. So observable properties like redshift, scalar localization, viewing angle distribution, intrinsic properties like Newton-Stas equation of state and mass distribution. So I show you some preliminary results. You have here the detectability as a function of time post-merger, so the percentage of detectable kilonovi as a function of time. Different colors refer to different signal-to-noise ratios, and different lines are the different arms of the spectrographs. On the left, you have results for a kilonova model that is based on a T2017 GFO, taking into account also for different distance dependencies and viewing angle dependencies, and on the right, for more generic theoretical models. Yes, on the top for EFS and on the bottom for fibers. You see that in any case, the best time to trigger observations appears to be from 12 to 24 hours post-merger. Now, from left to right, you see the redshift distribution, magnitude distribution, and the contribution of GRB afterglows to WST detections. So on the two left plot, the white background histograms are the kilonova parent population. Gray distributions refer to Vera Rubin observatory detections, and the colored histograms refer to WST detections. Different colors corresponding to different signal to noise. And in particular, on the leftist plot, you have also this black line that refers to the right-hand side y-axis and gives for each bin the fraction of kilonovi detectable with WST with respect to those that are detectable with Rubin. So for instance, here we are at 12-hour post-merger, and you see that almost all kilonovi detectable with Rubin are also detectable with WST up to redshift 0.2. In general, the detections horizon goes up to redshift about 0.4 and magnitude 25. And this last plot on the right gives you the viewing angle distribution of WST detections for those events where the afterglow outshines the kilonova. So you see that it happens mainly for on-axis and slightly off-axis systems. Now, sky localization as a function of redshift. On the left for BNS detected by ET alone, on the right for ET in a network with Cosmic Explorer, and for reference you have the black line giving WST field of view. As you see with a Cosmic Explorer in the network, of course, sky localization improves a lot, and it's very important for the electromagnetic follow-up, as you have to point to a very precise localization. And so let's imagine to do this follow-up with WST alone. So we receive the gravitational wave alert, we have information on sky localization, so a two-dimensional error region, and also information on luminosity distance and its error. So we end up with a three-dimensional error region. And how many galaxies can be found within this volume to be targeted with WST? So to see this, I did compute this comoving error volume for each BNS, started from the differential comoving volume. I integrated it into redshift, taking as boundaries the luminosity distance plus and minus its error, converting into redshift, multiplied by sky localization. I obtain what you see on the right, that is the comoving error volume for each BNS as a function of luminosity distance. And then I multiply it by the galaxy number density, obtained from the luminosity function, integrated into different magnitude intervals. And I obtain something like the plot on the left, where you have the number of galaxies in the comoving error volume of each BNS. So each point is one BNS detection. As a function of redshift, different colors are different magnitude intervals. And if you focus on the overall population with magnitude lower than 25, you obtain a probability distribution function like the one on the right. So now let's see it a bit differently to have an idea of what WST can cover in one night of observations. So this plot has the number of galaxies and the co-moving error volume as a function of sky localization. If we assume that one night of observation is around 8 hours, and here we're doing 1 hour observations, with 1 hour we can tile one field of view of WST, that is 3 degrees squared on the x-axis, and if you assume to have all fibers available, we will have 20,000 fibers to be compared to the number of galaxies on the y-axis. And so on. With 2 hours, we have 6 degrees squared and 40,000 fibers. And with 8 hours, this is what we can cover. So if you consider that white points on this plot are, it's a bit conservative plot up to redshift 0.45. So if we stay up to redshift 0.4, that is the detection horizon, and we look at the best localized events below, let's say, sky localization of 20 degrees squared, the fraction of galaxies that can be actually covered with WST fibers is pretty good. But this is only in terms of number of galaxies. Actually, some problem can be there if we consider also the galaxy's magnitude and angular size. So, for instance, what if the kilonova and the galaxies are superposed point sources, and the galaxy can outshine the kilonova? Or what if the kilonova has an offset with respect to the host, and we risk to, of course, miss its detection? In this last case, it would be great to have mini IFU with the WST fibers. It's an hypothesis that is taken into account within the collaboration. But in any case, possible solutions to this could be either to use WST alone only for golden cases scenarios, so for instance, the closest events or the best localized ones, or also to try to perform spectral subtractions with spectra taken with WST or other facilities. And the work that is in progress is that we are trying to look at the angular size and magnitudes of the galaxies that are within these volumes and these distance limitations using current galaxy catalogs. And of course, the other possible strategy is to use WST to target the candidates provided by facilities like the Vera Rubin Observatory. So just to conclude, the integral field and multi-object spectroscopy with WST are well suited for this research of electromagnetic counterparts of ETBNS. This can be done either in a standalone scenario or targeted counterpart candidates from other photometric surveys. The detection horizon is up to redshift 0.4 and magnitude 25 for kilonovae, while the afterglows, of course, can be detected up to higher redshifts, and their contribution is observable mainly for on-axis and slightly off-axis systems. And let me just mention that it would be interesting also to adapt this work with the EFS and MOS facilities available at time of O5 operations and see what can be done. And with this, thank you very much for your attention.
Sophia?
Thank you for the nice talk. You mentioned there predictions for O5.
Yeah.
Do you have any sense?
At the moment, not with the EFS and MOS, but it would be nice to do this work.
So with the galaxy targeting, and you mentioned the issue of maybe the source being outside of the galaxy itself, how often do you expect this to happen when you compare it to, I guess, the field of view?
Yes, this is something we are investigating. You mean to see with respect to the fiber aperture, right? Yeah, we are trying to see the distribution of the offset, in principle, of short gamma burst hosts. So short GRBs within their host, and in general of sourcing in the galaxy with the galaxy catalogs. So at the moment, no, sorry.
We have time, so other question. I have one question, is not related with gravitational wave, is the fact that the kilonova could be also detected with large survey, like with Vera Rubin. And in this case, you will have a more precise position.
Yeah.
So Do you take that into account in your studies?
Yeah, definitely. So either in this case, so these red points should be the candidates provided by Vera Rubin. So for instance, you have the alert, Rubin go tiling and provides a lot of counterpart candidates, and then fibers can go on these precise candidates, take spectra and identify these transient to see which is the kilonova.
Do you think this will be more effective than what ET will provide?
ET?
The Ancient Telescope will provide?
Yeah, I see. In which sense?
So in terms of how many candidates ET will be able to provide with respect to Vera Rubin?
So the point is you have one BNS from Einstein telescope and then all the electromagnetic counterpart candidates for that BNS, right?
No. What I
Okay.
was meaning is the fact that because Vera Rubin will observe a large fraction of the sky,
Yeah.
he may be able to detect a lot of kilonovas that will not be necessarily detected.
Okay, sorry, I didn't get that. Yeah, I think it would be great also in that case to try to see with WST identification.
Another final question. So let's thanks again, Sophia and all the speakers of this morning session.